You know this boy's name. I promise you that you do. And I promise you that almost everything you know about him is wrong, starting with where he lived, which was not any desert you're picturing. I'll tell you something before I begin that even the king didn't know. This story is a guest in my book. It is not one of the old tales I grew up on. It arrived later from far away, carried by other tongues, and it is set not in Persia, not in Baghdad, but in a great city at the far eastern edge of the world. So when you see it the way I have to imagine it, a place I have never been, drawn with the only brush I own. On the seventh night, something happened before I even began. My sister was humming, quietly in the doorway, the way she always did while she waited, a little market song, the kind children sing to remember how many apples cost a coin. And she caught herself and stopped and looked frightened because there had been no music in that palace for 7 years. The king had banned it along with the stories. The king looked at her, and in the whole long silence that followed, I could hear my own heart because I did not know which king I was going to get, the one who banned the song or the one who had laughed 2 nights ago. Then he said to my sister, not to me, "Finish it." And she did. She finished her little song of apples and coins in a small clear voice in a room where music was a crime. He didn't lift the ban on stories that night. He didn't say a word about it. He lifted the ban on one song for one child for the length of one breath. But I want it written down that on the 7th night, music came back into that palace through the smallest door in it. And then I told him about the boy. His name was Aladdin, and he was, by every honest account, a bit of a disaster. His father had been a poor tailor and had died of the disappointment of him. That's not quite fair, but it's how the story puts it. His mother spun cotton late into every night to feed them, and Aladdin ran the streets and dodged work and was clever in every way except the ways that earn a meal. And into that boy's aimless life walked a rich stranger who took one look at him and did something wonderful. He called him nephew. He said he was Aladdin's uncle, his dead father's long-lost brother, home at last from years of travel, weeping to have found his brother gone, but overjoyed to find his brother's son. He was, of course, no such thing, but he was generous, and that is how these things work. He came to their poor home with money and meat and fine cloth. He wept over the dead tailor. He promised to set the boy up in business, to make a man of him. And a hungry widow and a bored boy offered a rich, kind uncle out of nowhere. Well, you don't examine a gift like that too closely. That's the whole trick. He knew it and he counted on it. The uncle took the boy on a walk, just the two of them, out past the edge of the city to show him something, he said, a place he'd been saving for his favorite nephew. They walked further than a walk, past the gardens, past the last houses, out to a bare and lonely place between 2 hills where nobody came. And there the kind uncle lit a small fire and threw powder into it and spoke words that were not any language the boy had heard, and the ground cracked. The boy tried to run. The uncle caught him by the collar, and for one moment, just one, the warm smile was completely gone, and Aladdin saw the face underneath it. Then the smile came back, but the boy had seen. He filed it away, the way clever frightened children do. In the broken ground was a flat stone with a brass ring set into it, and cool blue light bleeding out around its edges. Under that stone, the uncle said, is a treasure that has waited for you and only you. No hand but yours can lift it. I cannot go down, only you. And that, if the boy had been less hungry and less curious, might have been the moment to ask why. The stone lifted at the boy's touch, only the boy's, and under it were steps going down. And what was down there stopped even Aladdin's restless heart. A garden under the earth, trees heavy with fruit, but the fruit was jewels, rubies the size of fists, emeralds hanging like green pears, a whole orchard of cut gems glowing in a still blue light, waiting in the dark for a boy in a patched tunic. But the uncle had been very specific. Touch none of it on the way in. Walk through the garden. At the very back, you will find a lamp, a plain, small, ugly lamp burning. Put it out, pour out the oil, and bring me that. Only that. The whole treasure, and the man wanted the one worthless thing in it. The boy should have wondered why. The boy was 15, and standing in a room made of jewels, he did not wonder. He went for the lamp. He got the lamp easy. And then, on the way back, passing all those glowing trees, he was a poor boy, and no poor boy alive walks out of a room full of jewels empty-handed. He stuffed his tunic, his sash, his sleeves, every fold of cloth he had, packed with gems, until he could barely move. Which is the small, greedy human thing that, as it turns out, saved his life. Remember that his hands were full. At the foot of the steps, the boy called up that he was stuck, too loaded with treasure to climb. Could his uncle please give him a hand up first? And the uncle said, "Give me the lamp first, hand it up, and then I'll pull you out." And here is where the treasure saved him. The lamp was buried under all those jewels, deep in his stuffed sash, and his hands were full, and he genuinely could not get it out, to hand it up without first climbing to solid ground and unpacking. "Pull me out first," the boy said, "and then you can have it." "The lamp first," said the uncle. His voice had changed. "Out first," said the boy. His voice had changed too. Neither of them would give. And the false uncle, who needed only the lamp and had never needed the boy at all, lost his temper completely. He threw his powder on the fire. He screamed his words. And the great stone crashed back down over the mouth of the cave. The daylight went out like a snuffed candle, and Aladdin was sealed under the earth in the dark, with a garden of jewels he couldn't eat, and a small brass lamp he didn't understand. He shouted himself hoarse. Nobody came, of course nobody came. The only man who knew where he was the man who had sealed him in. For 2 days he sat in the dark, growing colder and more certain that this ugly hole was the last thing he would ever see. A boy who'd wasted every easy day of his life, given a great deal of time, suddenly, to think about it. Now, the uncle had done one thing early that he'd forgotten in his rage. Before the boy went down, the man had slipped a ring onto his finger. For protection, he'd said, a small thing. He never thought of it again. And in the dark, cold and praying, wringing his hands the way frightened people do, the boy twisted that ring, and the dark began to glow. Something came out of the ring. Not a monster. A small, quiet spirit of grey smoke, no bigger than the boy himself, with a kind and patient face, who bowed and asked in the oldest words in this whole book, "What is your wish?" And there, with a genie the size of a boy bowing in the dark of a sealed cave, the sun came up. The king leaned forward. He almost raised his hand. He wanted to ask, I could see all of it, "What about the lamp? You said the story was about the lamp. That's a ring. What does the lamp do?" And I looked at him, and I did not answer it, because that is exactly the question I want a man to carry into a day. That is the whole art of it. "The ring," I said, "is the small magic. The boy doesn't even know yet that the ugly lamp in his lap, the thing the false uncle crossed the world for, the thing he'd have killed a boy to hold, is the greater one by far." My sister in the doorway was humming again. She'd decided, apparently, that music was allowed now. Nobody corrected her. "Tomorrow," I told the king, "the boy rubs the lamp, and you will understand why a man would give up an entire cave of jewels to hold the one dull thing inside it." He left slowly, as he did now, 2 lamps burning behind him, and for the first time in 7 years, the faint sound of a child humming in a palace corridor, not stopping, And on the arm of the throne, there was a seventh thread, porcelain blue, paler than the lapis, the cool color of rooftops in a city I have never seen, at the far edge of a world I will never reach, in a story that isn't even mine. 7 threads now. You can almost call it a pattern, you can almost call it a life. 7 nights down, 994 to go.